Hello everyone. I hope I am audible. And this is something I do every single time I go live. So yeah, let me just quickly test my audio on the Twitch stream, and then we can talk about what are we going to do today. Yes, it is audible. All right, awesome. And also thanks everyone for letting me know in the chat that I am audible. Awesome. All right. So yeah, we are live from MLH Fellowship, and today what we are going to talk about is something that's, at least for me, it's something quite exciting. This is something I came up with because I was actually struggling with writing great conference proposal, and then I thought about, if this is a problem with me, probably this will be a problem with most of us, most of you folks as well. So why not let's do a session on it, and all of us can learn together, like how exactly to write great proposals, and then maybe we can end up at the same conferences as a speakers. So yeah, so what that means is today we're going to talk about how to write great conference proposals, and today we have someone very special with us. I am actually a big fan of this person. I recently found him on the internet before I was about to reach out to him, and he was suggested to me by someone from MLH. So we have Adam with us, and here he is. Hey Adam. Basically,
Hi there.
Adam is hi. Adam is a principal consultant at EveryDeveloper. He is also the author of one of the very amazing book. I started reading that book like a week ago. I think I read the first chapter. He's the author of Developer Marketing Does Not Exist, and it's really amazing. Everyone should try that if you're into developer advocacy, developer relations, etc. He also previously worked with Sendgrid and Zapier, etc. And with his experience about conferences and developer relations, etc., he is going to talk about how can we write a great conference proposals and end up being a speaker in those sessions. So yeah, with that, I will hand it over to you, Adam, and I will also go over the background music.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's good to be here, and thanks for asking me. And I'm excited to hear from all of you as well. I think we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A, right, as part of this.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's good. So we'll make sure and we leave some time for that. But this topic was one that I wrote something up for the developer evangelists at Sendgrid, and Nick, who is part of MLH, kept a copy of it. Otherwise, I might not have had a copy of this. And so when you reached out asking about this, I went and found that copy that I'd seen and looked back. And so this is actually going to be the same 7 things that I told to the Sendgrid team. And that was many years ago now, but I think that shows that these are sort of timeless things to keep in mind as you think about creating a proposal for a conference, and and a way to be able to structure that. So even though this won't be sort of like the tips and hacks, I mean, not the hacks, it'll be the tips. No hacks for like sneaking your way into it. I think these are good foundational things that we're going to talk about. And actually, I realized you mentioned the book, Developer Marketing Does Not Exist. I realized that actually a lot of the things that I wrote about many years before the book for the Sendgrid team fit really well in, I mean, they're very related to this. So if you like these 7 tips, I think you'll also like the book. And there's an events chapter in there, and on other types of content. So I think these same things that we're talking about today, you can, yes, use them to land a speaking slot at a conference. You can also use them as you're writing blog posts to get more people to see them, those sorts of things, which is a lot of what our work at EveryDeveloper is about, and certainly the book is about. So with that, I thought I would jump just straight into the 7. You're going to get kind of the 7. I'll show you a list of all of them at the end. So, and then we'll have a chance to dig into what maybe some questions that you have specifically about some of them as we go. So the first one, this very much in developer marketing work is important, understanding the audience, or in this case, the audiences. So I specifically had that S added on there. And the thing that the mistake that I see people make both in conference proposals and in content that they write is being very kind of inwardly focused about them, about a product, not about the thing that audience might care about. And so wanting to think about those audiences as you do. And one of them I bet you already are thinking about, and that is the people who are going to watch this talk. And even still, it's really easy to kind of say, like, you know, my best Rust tips, which is still kind of about you. It's for the audience, but, you know, maybe it could be more something like, what will this audience, who hasn't ever used Rust before, what are the first things they could see, right? So as you start to think about who are these people who will see this, you can get more specific with your description. And that will be a theme across all 7 of these, I think, is getting as specific as you can, because generic is not something that's going to get clicks on a blog post. It's things that are less likely to be selected in a conference proposal as well. But can anyone guess the other audience that you should keep in mind with your conference proposal? Go ahead and, if you're live, drop it in the comments with who you think you should consider. So I see someone said the selectors. That's right. Sponsors is interesting. Organizers is the one that I had in mind, which is the the selectors. In some cases, sponsors help to organize conferences as well. So yes, you want to think about who are the people who are going to be selecting this talk, and what are the things they want to see. And so they, of course, want a great experience for the attendees, but sometimes there are a few things different that they have to think about. Maybe the balance of types of talks. And so some of those things, so keep that in the back of your head, because some of the things that we're going to go through here and then the next items are relevant to what an organizer would want to see. And so this second one is, first of all, personal validation to all of you. You are important. But secondly, is a reminder that you're the one you're proposing to give this talk. And so finding the things where, like, why are you the exact person who should give this? And so that's where some of again, it's going from generic to specific. What is it that makes you the obvious person over all the other potential people who could give this talk? And so wanting to make sure that you think about the thing. So those of you that are in the fellowship, that's something worth mentioning as part of your bio or even your description, right? Because that's that's differentiating you from many others. With the Sendgridders, I had told them that. I said, you're working at Sendgrid, which is currently at that point everywhere across the globe, helping people not just with their email, but with all of the developer problems that they bump into. That has some weight in these proposals, and so finding those things that have the weight for you. And so fellowship for sure, the hands-on experience with tools that you might use, that might be, combination of tools that might be a rare combination. So looking for those things that have you stand out, and remember to include yourself in it. And we'll get back to that a little bit as we talk through the different areas. And this next one, to do your research, on one hand, certainly you want to know about your topic that you're proposing, even if your topic is what someone completely brand new to some technology sees. Like, being able to still at least understand that topic some is important. But really, the big thing that I mean when I say do your research is on the conference that you are pitching for your own slot. And so going through and really making sure that you understand the types of topics they have. And there are, I wish I'd included in this deck an example I saw recently for it was for an incident response conference. So people who are reliability engineers, and they did a really good job, the organizers did, of outlining the themes that they wanted proposals on. Most conferences will have that somewhere. They'll kind of tell you a little bit about what they want to have. And so look for that and take that seriously. You can still find a creative angle within a particular theme. Other things that you can do for research is to go back to that conference. If they've done the conference multiple times, read through the session descriptions from the last time they've done it, and see what you can find to make sure that you can kind of change your topic to be closer to the type that they have accepted in the past. Unless you see something on their description of, definitely don't want to have any more of this type of topic that we had way too much of last year, right? But that's rarer for sure. And you can kind of infer also the topics that might be selected if they've announced keynotes or particular speakers. Find out who those are, and you can kind of piece together, especially if this is a first time, what types of topics they're most interested in. So you want to put yourself in the best spot to have what you're proposing. Find the angle so it might be your same topic. Maybe you have a topic you really love and you want to give this talk. Well, you're finding a different angle at it for each conference, because every conference is going to be a little bit different with what they want. And so now we're finally to the part where you actually get to write something, right? So everything before this has been kind of preparing, thinking about who are these audiences, what makes you special, researching the things that have happened there before. But now you're ready to actually start writing this down. And so the biggest thing to keep in mind is that what you write is likely to end up sometimes in a printed program, definitely on the website. You might not have an easy way to go back and change that. So sometimes that can be really hard, thinking about, oh my gosh, what I'm writing has to be final. This has to be the thing that's everyone's going to see. but I think it can also inspire confidence in your description. So instead of saying things like, if this talk is selected, I will go through these 3 types of whatever, right? Instead, it's, in this talk, I will, right? So when you put yourself in that, this is the final version that's in the program, you can kind of gain some confidence by that as well. So, it doesn't have to be final copy, and there are ways to be able to get that changed in the future. I mean, if it's an in-person conference and there's a printed copy, at some point that goes to the printer, right? But you can usually find a way to update it. So don't feel stifled by that, but let that actually encourage you instead. I think being able, so this is a spot where you think about yourself again and your backgrounds, and can you include that in the description as well? So, if you've done, if this is an advanced Node.js talk, you should probably mention your Node experience, definitely in the bio that you put, because a lot of times there'll be a bio alongside a description, but even in the description. And I remember 10 or so years ago putting in a proposal to a conference, and I ran it by a mentor, and they suggested putting in some of that sort of stuff about me into the description. And that was really the first time that had occurred to me. And that's something that most of my descriptions now will have something about that. Because again, why is someone accepting this talk? Why is someone attending this talk? They're going to see this in the program. They're going to see this in the part where they are going to select, and you are going to be a big piece of why they select this. So another reason to think about writing for the program is you don't, this is what it usually looks like after I just did a quick search the other day to find this. This isn't even a technology conference, but in the end, I actually really liked this description. And so I thought I would dwell on that here for a moment of why I like it. It's a pretty good title, The Best Practices. Maybe that might be a little more overdone in our sort of technology world. But that first line, so as county leaders, so this is for a conference for people in county governments. As county leaders, so it's really identifying that audience right at the beginning. And then if you read through, it's all about what are the outcomes? What are the things that these people will actually get out of this? They'll have a way to proactively approach their community engagement. I mean, in some ways, some of this description could work for a technical community topic, actually, too, right? So I really liked that description, so that's why I stuck with it. But the biggest reason why I brought it here was to show what you want to avoid, what it looks like when someone doesn't provide a description at all, or sometimes there'll be like a one-sentence description. And this is the kind of like, oh, I'm going to fill out this call for proposals, in the next 10 minutes, just got to get this in and see if they accept my talk. Oh, they accepted my talk. And that description never gets updated. So if you're not writing for the program when you go from the start, you can end up with something like this, where it's blank or where it isn't as interesting. And that can affect who actually attends the talk, because someone pulls out their phone and looks at the schedule. Maybe you have a great title and that's enough. I mean, what should your county be doing to prepare for electric vehicles? That might be a good enough title that you don't need a description to pull people in. But if they're going to be comparing it to this one that's fully written here, right, then it's less likely for someone to choose that over another if they're in a place with multiple tracks or sometimes we see that with virtual conferences too, where there are different rooms. So that bit about the title, though, leads into this next one. Who has been anticipating me saying how important this part is? Anyone? It's definitely in writing blog posts. This is kind of 80%. The headline is 80% of your work, really. And so the same is true in your conference proposal for both of those audiences that I mentioned, right? The organizers, they want to see something that's compelling, and so do the attendees. Interestingly, my book that we've mentioned a couple times now, that title, Developer Marketing Does Not Exist, started as a conference talk title. And before it was a conference talk title, it was like a little piece of a conference talk. And that's one of the things, when you start to give more talks, you're able to start to see the things that really resonate with an audience. And that's how it ended up being a title that I used in multiple places. And so, we could do a whole hour or a whole day just on titles and headlines. One thing I like to point to, it's another oldie but goodie. This is a really, maybe 2010 era. It was on SlideShare, that dates it, but presentation from Upworthy. And hey, Ian, another Sendgridder, former Sendgridder in here. And so Upworthy has this, they have a whole presentation on their editorial process. This specifically is about writing headlines. And I admit I have only done this a handful of times to truly sit down and write 25 different headlines. But you'll find even after you get to like 5 or 6, you start to realize that you got something better than the first thing that you thought of. And so working through and really thinking about that title, thinking of it from the perspective of those two audiences that we mentioned, the attendees and the organizers, and putting your attention on that. And again, yes, you matter, but don't make it about you, especially in the title, is an important piece. So yeah, all about the title. I see some comments that titles are super important. We're all on the same page there. In the Q&A, if you want to chat about ideas for ways to make better titles, we can. Go check out Upworthy's process, that presentation, or just take the 25 headline approach that they mentioned and see how far you can get. See if you can get to 25. It's really hard, but valuable stuff comes out of it. And so I think we're on number 6 now, if I'm counting right, out of these 7. And this is to get feedback. And this is one that I admit doesn't come naturally to me. But I've seen people do it really well, and I do try to do it. Anything I write now absolutely goes through at least one other person for editing, often multiple on the EveryDeveloper team, and certainly stuff that the EveryDeveloper team writes, we have a process for it. The same is true for a conference proposal. So someone says headlines are the hook. That's right. And then you want to fulfill that as you describe it, and you want to get feedback on both of those. And actually, the headlines being the hook is that would be a great thing to. So if you know that's the most important part, you ask someone for feedback. You can be specific about the feedback that you want. So that's one of the things that can be tough with getting feedback, is you're looking for someone who will give feedback beyond, oh, that looks great, or oh, you spelled Google wrong, right? Like that sort of surface level feedback. And one of the ways to get better feedback, I learned this at Zapier. It was one of the Zapier values, is to ask for the feedback that you want. So saying, "Can you have a look at this?" The headline is the one that I'm really, I'd love you to look at all of it, but like I'm really wondering about how I can make that headline better. Or do you think that I've included enough about my background and why I'm the right speaker for this? And you'll get better feedback when you're able to be specific about the feedback you want. And looking back at the original piece that I wrote for the Sendgrid team, I did say you want good feedback. I didn't say how to get it. And so that's one thing I've learned since then, is how to get that feedback beyond "that's great" or "you spelled Google wrong," is to ask for some of the feedback that you want. And then this last one is also one that could probably be a full hour or a day, and also might feel a little bit slimy to some of you hearing this. And I totally get that as one who, the subtitle of the book is Authentic Guide, right? You want to be authentic. And when you start sort of asking people for favors, it feels kind of inauthentic. And I get that. But at the same time, the organizers are humans, right? And humans are much more likely to choose someone who they know, who they're at least aware of. And so that's one of the upsides to networking with organizers. The other one that might even be bigger is, by doing that, you actually understand more about what they want. And so your goal should be to help them out. And so being able to think about the things that they would want. So they want to have the event promoted, so help share it. They will see that. You can ask them what help they want, right? Starting to get to know organizers can be a way, especially if you haven't given a talk before. It's a way to kind of get that first opportunity. And even I would suggest, if this is kind of a first talk situation also, that think about what are some first steps you can have into that. As far as networking with organizers, you could offer to volunteer to help them. They need lots of help, especially if this is an in-person event, though it is the case with online events also. There's a lot of different things that need to happen. So what are some ways that you can be able to help? And network is a term that means connecting of people. So you already have a network, so you can reach out to, even if you don't know someone or even know the right person, you can start to make those asks. And that was one of the think of the people that you have, your fellowship, your fellow fellows, if you're in the fellowship, your others that are part of your tech community, and reach out to them for help on how to reach particular organizers as well. So now is the screenshot moment. This is the one where you see all 7 of these on a single slide, and I'll pause there and let you get it. And you can see how things like the title and the program go back to the audience. They go back to who you are and the skills and background you have. It's certainly related to knowing the things that would be on the program, doing your research, and you'll be able to hone that with the feedback, and also with knowing what the organizers want when you get to know them better. And I will say, for those of you on that sort of first step to this, it gets so much easier after that first one or two if you're on the very early stages of this, because part of that bio or description can be you spoke at this event, right? And being able to point to those things, going back to the you are important, the places you've spoken become things that help sell you. If you have things, I mean, I've now written 2 books. Writing that first one opened so many doors to so many conferences. I know that's a big project, but what are those things like a book that you could put on that list, again, to set you apart? And and it gets much easier. I mean, the first time I spoke at South by Southwest, it was on a topic, like it was a panel that I organized, and the topic was bringing kind of gaming concepts of like gamification into your non-game websites and tools. Not necessarily something I had a super background in. I had an interest, and I knew people, and I brought people together. There was someone who had created CD-ROMs way like a long time ago when that was a thing, and it was much older than me. And there was someone who had worked on Flash games when that was a thing, and in between, and it was a good discussion. It wasn't like like the exact thing I would really, really want for a topic, but it was a foot in the door that I could then use at other conferences and South by Southwest. I think I spoke for 4 years in a row or something, and it started with that first opportunity. So there are a lot of aspects there. Again, we didn't get into the like, here's the one word that you put in here to absolutely get selected, right? There's a reason why I was able to pull these same 7 that worked 8 years ago when Nick asked me to write it up then, I think maybe too. There's a reason that these 7 worked then, they work now. They're elements of the book, for sure. And it's really just about being able to help your own community. And I know that's, if you're part of the MLH community, I know that's a big part of what you think about. And so use these 7 ways to make sure, kind of as a checklist, to make sure you're really thinking through and creating the best proposal you can. And I bet there are going to be some questions about that. I'm happy to get to those. And thanks for having me.
That was really amazing and insightful. Let's wait for a minute or two. I am pretty sure some of the audience may have some questions about what we just talked about. By the way, I do have one question.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the audience question. There is one in the chat.
Yeah. So, do I have any advice on an absolute beginner? So, I'm not sure if that's beginner, beginning speaker, or beginner in technology. I mean, if you're new to technology, okay, beginning speaker. Real quick on the if you feel like don't have enough of a background in technology to speak, you're always ahead of someone. There's always a topic and a conference where you can participate. So the first book I wrote was on mapping APIs, and embedding Google Maps into your work. I went and brought that to a big maps conference. So I didn't know anything about all the like map tools that they used, but I had this one little nugget, which is, you want to get this on the web. I have written a book that helps you be able to do that. So sometimes one of the ways is going to an area. I mean, go to a conference that isn't technology and teach them what you know about technology, you will be the star. You will be the one who knows everything, right? So, but for the beginning speaker, I would look for smaller events that you can be a part of. So, pre-COVID, we all would talk about meetups. They're starting. In my city, at least, I'm in Portland, Oregon. They're starting to come back, and so that maybe is an option, is looking kind of for those events. Though certainly you can find that kind of in a virtual place as well. So look for, it's a smaller thing. Even if you're giving a talk to, a handful of people, 5 people, it's still, you're working on that skill. You have to write up that description still, right? And then you have something to be able to point to. And that really, really is big when you can say, I've given talks on, and follow that up with one or more things. And then I think for the networking with the organizers that I mentioned is kind of looking, even from a meetup perspective, you could go attend the meetup, talk to the organizer, right? That's maybe a very first step. And so that's what I would do if I was an absolute beginner. Also remember that like, question how absolute beginner you are. Have you spoken in classes before, right? Have you given those presentations? You can, like, it helps me to build myself up and remember, oh, that's right, I do have some things I've done in the past, and build on top of that. All right. So the question is, what would you say to someone who has presented in other fields but is now switching from speaking at academic conferences to tech conferences? Aha, yeah. Are there specificities that need to be taken into account? So, yeah. So, I mean, academic and professional conferences are definitely very different, right? You'll see academic ones, the description that I talked about, the writing for the program, that's the abstract, right? At a academic conference. And, tends to, like, I think to go for that kind of eye-catching title and, injecting some of that sort of interest would run counter to some academic conferences. Like, that might actually work against you being selected, that you have like a clickbaity, upworthy kind of title at academic conferences. So I think because of that, you might have some natural tendency toward what appears generic in a professional capacity. And so looking for ways to remember to get that. And that would be where getting feedback from someone who is outside of academia and saying and asking for that specific feedback, right? Like, is this too dry? Can you read this and see if this is too dry? Right. Write in points or full sentences when submitting the proposal. Ooh, good question. Yeah. So I would say a mix. So it is real good. I wouldn't just submit bullet points, but those really do capture the eye of both of those audiences. And so if you can get, especially if those bullet points can be toward what are the outcomes that someone's looking for. So, I mentioned that in that county, description that I showed, where they talked about, here are the things that you'll get out of that. They wrote it in full sentences. But if we were to workshop that one and improve it, one of the ways, absolutely, pulling those 3 things that were kind of listed in a list out and putting them in bullet points, as this is what you'll get when you go to this, is a great way. So being able to look for places where you can do that. And that's in blog posts. We do that all the time too. Our editorial team will see someone put 3 things in a row, and it's like, oh, that not only is that a long sentence, which makes it harder to read, but boy, that's just begging to be bullet pointed. because that really helps with skimmers, and that's the way people read online. And I mean, if you have 200 proposals for a conference to look through, you'll also be skimming some of those. Beginner at public speaking. Any tips to engage with the crowd, like go-to jokes you keep? That's a good question too. So I do like to. I didn't do that for this one. Include some kind of like joke toward the beginning to let people know, oh, it's okay. You can laugh. This is gonna be fun, right? This is not gonna be boring. So that's a good idea. One of the things I often do is practice the first 5 minutes like multiple times. I mean, it's great if you can practice the whole thing multiple times, but really get that 5 minutes, that first 5 minutes in. I mean, assuming it's like a 30-minute talk or something, right? Like if it's a 10-minute talk, really dial in that first minute, right? And practice that over and over, because that will give you more confidence when you're giving the talk, especially if you are new to public speaking. You want to give yourself any chance at that you can. But then it also, you being confident gives your audience confidence. And that's the biggest thing that will push you through to having a great talk for the rest of that time, is if you can keep that audience at first and they see that it's going to be interesting. So absolutely, if you have a joke, I mean, I know some people just start with a joke. You can do that, but I try to work in some sort of little, thing that at least is lighthearted toward the beginning. Also, engaging with the crowd, it can help to even just meet a few of the people before, or even kind of identify them, in the front, like early on in the talk. Do you have a way to engage them? Even a way to ask them a question can be a great way to, again, build that confidence in both of you at the beginning. And the joke, so the academic title, if it doesn't have a colon in the title, it's not an academic title. Like that could be an example of a joke you could give at the beginning. If you have your first professional talk, and that's one of the ways, you could say, I have been in academia for 10 years or whatever it is, right? And this is the first talk I've given without a colon in the title. Or I put a colon in the title because, I'm an academic, but I'm here to talk about, this in a professional capacity now. Like, even that sort of thing isn't like, it's not a planned joke, but it shows that there's some lighthearted aspects. So suggestions on how to connect the audience while presenting, how to create that engagement. So again, questions for the audience can help, especially virtual. Like, that's in virtual talks, I will often have a point where I get to kind of like an important point in the talk, and I might say, this is the part where you're going to want to tab back over from your email to this to this window and listen to this, right? Like, even that kind of like pulls them in. I mean, in person, you can, it's a little bit of an advanced move, but you can actually go into the audience. But even from the stage, kind of walking toward them can help to create that also. But if you have a way kind of in the audience, if there's a reason for you to be down there, I did one where in Stockholm, where I learned later that the Swedes are really unsure about, it was like, everyone's like, why is he in the audience? But I had just a silly little thing where I brought a remote that actually didn't do anything, but I had an animation on the screen that showed Netflix. and I was talking about the Netflix API and how it powers everything there. But I had someone think that they were controlling Netflix from live, and so that was something that could do to actually get with the audience and kind of pull them into what we were talking about. I think the good one is questions, a quiz even. So I used to have 2 different pieces of documentation that were blurred out, and I had people guess which one, or say which one they thought was the best by not even being able to see it, and then had a conclusion at the end of that helped explain a point. But that can be helpful for engaging. But the very basics for sure are a question, and an easy question too. Like, just who here has written any code before? Raise your hands. And you do the little speaker trick where you actually, in person at least, where you actually raise your hand, and people will join you in that. And that's just a way even to start feeling like you're engaging that audience. Yeah, these are all really good questions, and I like that many of them are beyond that proposal. So you're already thinking that proposal is accepted, and you are going there and you are going to speak. And I believe that's the case. And so make sure you go through these 7 pieces. Can I show you again? There we go. Go through these 7 as you put together your proposals, and and let me know where you're speaking. I want to see it.
Awesome. There is one other question.
There is. I'm looking now. I'm trying to get back to the bottom there. Going back to the proposal. Awesome. Do you happen to have a sample conference proposal example that you could share? What a great idea. And I don't. And so often what they ask for is different, but you'll almost always have bio and description. But yeah, that's a good idea. And I don't have one of those, though. You could probably search my name. I hesitate to give that advice. Search my name in a conference, and you'll see ones that I have done in the past. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right, I think that was pretty much it. Again, amazing questions and amazing answers, and the other 7 points. Definitely, I am going to try this because, as I said initially, this is something that I struggle with, and I am going to use this, and then I will let you know where I'm going to for a talk for a presentation.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, you tell me about it. I know you have my email address, so let me know. Yeah.
All right. We will do the public thing. Tweet about it.
Right.
All right. Yep. As that is pretty much it. And thanks again, Adam, for the amazing session. And thanks everyone for joining and asking those great questions. Hope to see you again next time on the Twitch stream. And again, thanks, Adam. Have an amazing day.
Good to see you all. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.